The morning sun slipped through the wide windows of the Carson ranch, casting golden light across the polished wooden floor. Luke Carson, the wealthy cowboy known all over Texas for his sharp mind and stronger hands, sat on his couch in quiet thought. Everything in his world was in order. The horses fed, the land thriving, the staff disciplined. Everything except one thing: the quiet maid who moved through his house like a shadow. Her name was Emily. She was shy, careful with her words, always avoiding his eyes. But there was something about her that stirred an unfamiliar curiosity. Deep inside him, Luke had noticed her gentle ways for months, the way she would fix his coffee just right, the way she lingered by the window watching the rain. When she thought no one was looking, the other ranch hands spoke of her kindness, how she never raised her voice or complained even after working late. But Luke had also heard something peculiar, that Emily often checked on him at night after he'd fallen asleep. He didn't believe it at first, but the thought began to haunt him. What did she do? Why would she come to his room when she thought he was asleep? One quiet evening, Luke decided to find out. He sat by the fireplace, boots still on, pretending to doze off with his hat tilted low over his face. The house was silent, except for the soft crackle of the fire. A few minutes later, he heard the door creak open. Her footsteps were light, hesitant. Emily entered the room, clutching a folded blanket to her chest. She stood there for a long moment, watching him as though afraid to move closer. Then, with trembling hands, she stepped forward and gently spread the blanket over him. Luke almost smiled, but what happened next made his heart tighten. Emily leaned closer, her voice barely a whisper. "You work too hard, Mr. Carson," she murmured, brushing a loose strand of hair from his forehead. "You deserve to rest." Then she did something that made his breath catch. She softly touched his cheek with her fingers, her touch tender, almost longing. "If only you knew how much she whispered, but stopped herself, lowering her head. Before leaving, she bent down and kissed his hand gently. Luke's chest burned with a feeling he couldn't name. The cowboy who thought he was testing his maid realized instead that his heart had just been tested and shaken. The next morning, the air in the Carson ranch was unusually still. Emily moved through her chores with her head down, her cheeks flushed and her heart racing. She was sure Luke had slept through everything the night before. He hadn't moved or stirred, and she had slipped out quietly before dawn. Still, shame lingered in her chest. How could she have done something so foolish? She was just a maid, and he was her employer, a man of wealth, status, and pride. Yet the warmth of his hand still lingered on her lips, and the memory made her tremble. Luke, on the other hand, couldn't get the moment out of his mind. He sat at the breakfast table, pretending to read the morning paper, though his eyes barely scanned the words. Every few minutes, his gaze drifted toward Emily as she poured his coffee. Careful not to meet his eyes, the way she moved, gentle, nervous, almost guilty, confirmed what he already knew. She thought her secret was still safe. But Luke had seen and felt enough to know it wasn't just duty that made her come to him. It was something softer, something real. All day he fought with himself. Should he confront her? Should he pretend it never happened? He wasn't a cruel man, but he also wasn't one to ignore the truth. By nightfall he made up his mind. He would find out what was in her heart. That evening he took his place on the same couch by the fire, pretending once again to nap. The ranch was quiet except for the wind howling outside. Emily entered the room to tidy up, pausing when she saw him there. She hesitated, clutching the duster in her hand. But habit, or perhaps care, drove her forward. When she reached down to adjust the blanket, Luke's hand shot out and caught hers. Emily gasped, her eyes wide in shock. "Mr. Carson, I'm sorry. I didn't mean—" His voice was calm but deep, steady as thunder. "Why do you care so much, Emily?" Her breath trembled. "I was just doing my job." He looked up at her, eyes soft but piercing. "That's not what I heard last night." Her knees weakened. The secret she thought was hidden had been heard. And in that moment, under his steady gaze, Emily's world stood still.